Why Gen Z culture is basically medieval China. What? What do you mean?
The other day I was thinking about it and I realized, you know who these dang Gen Zers remind me of? The Song Dynasty from medieval China. Anyone
That's
else been
so
feeling
specific!
lately? No? It's just me? Well, let me explain what I mean. There's all this new data to suggest that younger people these days want to spend their money on experiences, not physical items.
I feel like that too now, right now. I feel that right now because I feel like I've wasted my life not doing really that much things in my life, and now I'm like, I really want to try to like live life because like I just studied and that's it, and that's all I did in my life. I didn't. Well, to be fair, I don't regret it whatsoever. I really enjoyed my time, but like, you know, sometimes you just do want to like experience new things, isn't it?
I think it reflects this growing hunger for third spaces, and if you don't know what third spaces are, let me just quickly break it down for you. Basically, your two main spaces are home and work, and historically the third
Work?
space was somewhere in the middle. Maybe it was the bar, or the guild hall, or the tea house. These have all but gone extinct recently.
Oh, mine is the living room, and my bedroom is my two areas, and the third one is the kitchen.
Or have become prohibitively expensive, and young people are feeling it. They want the third spaces back. This maybe feels like a very 21st century vibes-based phenomenon, but it's actually extremely Chinese. The Song Dynasty was the first era in history to have what we would consider as a lifestyle culture, where the cities were actually designed for pleasure and snacking and nighttime entertainment, just like so many downtown areas are today. There was this 12th
I do think that there's a lack of space to like chill around in general.
century writer named Meng Yuanlao, who wrote this fascinating memoir called The Record of a Dream of Splendor at the Eastern Capital. It's one of these shocking works from the Middle Ages that I love reading because it seems like it was written by someone recently instead of someone 1,000
Guys, I feel like I'm a very like I was just about to say that. I think I'm in a very Chinese moment in my life right now. Like I really feel it. Like the house in Hightail that I'm making, you know, like dude, I feel very like I feel like you guys are like talking to me in a very Chinese moment that I have in my life right now. Like, you know what I mean?
1,000 years ago. He writes this whole nostalgic reminiscence of the Song capital city, Kaifeng, and talks all about the 24-hour tea houses and the professional performers and storytellers and the specific vibes of the different districts. There's this one section where he talks about restaurant culture. I'll just quote the full thing.
Like I'm learning Chinese just to talk in CS. Like, dude, like it's a very Chinese time in the stream right now, dude. It's not even a joke, actually. Am I not wrong?
And you tell me if this sounds familiar. When the guests arrive, a single person holding chopsticks and a menu questions all of the seated guests. The men of the capital are extravagant and they demand 100 different things. Some hot, some cold, some warm, some regular, some extremely cold, and things like noodles laced with lean and fatty meat. Everyone orders something different.
Noodles.
The waiter takes the orders and draws near a counter where he stands in line and recites the orders off from the start. I don't know, this to me literally sounds like a night out in 2026. I'm positive this isn't what you would picture in your head when you hear the word medieval. Also, just to give you a historical timeline here, this is basically China on the eve of the eventual Mongol invasion, and it's a time and a place where consumerism is starting to flourish, and it's becoming a core identity for younger people. Bringing it back to Gen Z, I've noticed that there's this big obsession with what I would call curated living. I don't know, maybe I'm not describing it accurately, but it is super vibes based, like life is one big Pinterest board. Think of terms like cozy games or the aesthetics of going on a walk around the city with an iced matcha. It's this sort of return to the Song Dynasty scholar, gentleman, urban ideal. Your status isn't just about money, although that'll obviously always be.
I like how this guy was scrolling through TikTok and then like saw a girl with a matcha like tea going around and walking the city and was like, wow, we're really living in a Chinese like time right now.
It's about your taste. Back then, it was about your taste in tea and incense and interior design. Now it's more so about your taste in underground music and niche TikTokers. The youth don't want to be told what's cool anymore by commercials and MTV with big corporations calling the shots. They want to create their own experiences. They want to get medieval Chinese again. Also, semi-relatedly, there's been a big surge in traditional Chinese medicine trends among Westerners on TikTok.
Oh my god, true.
Recently. You see it everywhere. A number of Chinese American influencers have been sort of introducing these ancient concepts like Qigong practice or drinking hot water instead of cold water, and the internet has been going crazy for it. So maybe medieval China
Day one want to be the Chinese baddie. What?
Is making a comeback in more ways than one. We won't just focus on the Song dynasty here. There's more to China in the Middle Ages than just that one period, but I do have a few more Song boxes I want to check before we continue. Before we do that, just a quick plug. If you like my content, which of course you do, you should definitely join my Patreon, link in the description.
Oh, I
You'll
believe.
get access to the official Medieval Mindset podcast with weekly episodes, the Medieval Mindset book club, voting rights.
Yeah, guys, I don't think I could ever make a Patreon or anything with like that kind of stuff, is because like I have nothing to offer. I personally, as a streamer, have nothing to offer other than the streams that I do.
Topics and titles and thumbnails, the essential medieval history reading list, special videos that don't get posted.
Like this is known. Yeah, the only thing I can think of is taking away from like, let's say, things that are literally that you guys are used to, and then making it through a paywall, but that feels wrong. Like imagine if I made the announcements like under a paywall. That's like, oh my fucking god. Anyway.
Main channel. So sign up now, and if you're not subscribed to this channel, go ahead and do that as well. Back to the video. Maybe you've heard of
like, what's the point of me having a podcast? My stream is already a podcast.
modern phenomenon of looks maxing, or maybe you aren't chronically online and have no idea what I'm talking about. Basically, looks maxing is the new version of the age-old concept of getting hot, although it goes way beyond diet and exercise and a little Botox. Young people, I would say especially young men, are exploring all of these scientific avenues to try and improve their looks. The most medieval seeming looks maxing method is called bone smashing. And
oh, have you guys heard of that? You take something that's hard and you micro like tick 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 tick
and over again by probably the most famous looks maxer, a 19-year-old streamer named
Clavicular. God, yeah, microfractures.
Looks maxer, bone smashing, clavicular. I understand this all might sound ridiculous to you, but stick with me because it's interesting. Also, don't you want to understand the youth? Anyway, the way Clavicular describes it, bone smashing is when you take a tiny hammer and tap hard along your cheekbones and your jawbone. It causes a temporary swelling that lasts for a few hours and makes those bones look more defined. So it's something you might do just before a night out so you can look more masculine to any ladies you meet. Maybe at this point this isn't a crazy revelation, but it turns out young guys in medieval China had the same insecurity.
I love the way that he like links us to China, dude. There's something about it that he's like so excited just to like talk about the Chinese like medieval China, like dude. Like I don't know what it is, but you can see like the topics shifting towards the Chinese now, and you can see that smile.
And this isn't a crazy revelation, but it turns out young guys in medieval China had the same insecurities that modern men do, and they even went about similar methods of soothing their anxieties. During the Song Dynasty period, there was this really interesting tension between the Wen class, who were the more literary, refined scholars, and the Wu class, who were the more martial and physical warrior caste. Depending on which group you belong to, you'd basically looks max to make sure your outward appearance matched what you represented.
Well, to be fair, I understand why people are so addicted to their looks, because like, dude, I will not lie, people will treat you better if you look better, unfortunately, when it comes to life. That's just how it is. You're gonna learn that the hard way or the easy way. It's just how everybody is. Isn't it narcissism? I think there's a level where it becomes that, but self-care and caring for yourself and how you look is never a bad thing. Does that make sense? There's always like a spectrum of things, and if you lean too far to the right or you lean too far to the left, you're gone, dude. You should like care about how you look. You should care, but you shouldn't care so much to the point where you're fucking hitting yourself with a hammer thinking that it will look better. Does that make sense? But you should care. You should take care of your hygiene. You should take care of your let's say your appearance, get a haircut, care about like if you look presentable, like that, you should care.
So that meant young men who were part of the scholarly class went to these extreme lengths to achieve this sort of refined, pale physical aesthetic with slender features to
Clavicular does meth in order to keep himself thin. Isn't that the guy that literally put filler in his literal sister's like face?
Essentially highlight the fact that they never had to work with their hands. They'd even use specific diets and cosmetic aspects of traditional Chinese medicine to maintain this look that would instantly
Deme, I think with social media and camera filters have made it no longer good enough to be average looking, which leads to these insane things.
You know what I think? I think that I don't like taking photos recently. I have not been having fun taking photos recently with the iPhone 17 because I think the iPhone 17 is just too HD. Like, I don't think people need to see that much level of detail when it comes to like f***ing selfies or whatever. Like, dude, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm genuinely thinking of like lowering down my phone. Not, it's not because like I don't feel like I look good. Like I like the photo, but like I don't think that you need to see how I look like when you're actually that close to me. I don't like that. I really don't fucking like that.
To everyone that they were part of the intelligentsia. Those in the military class.
Show me your pores.
Considered to be the modern.
Oh my god, dude. Nikita's like whenever I talk about my skin, Nikita gets irritated a little bit at me because apparently like I have very good skin, okay? Apparently. That's what Nikita says. And I'm like, no. I have been thinking of getting like this injection thingy that will make it so that I have like 0 pores. And et cetera, et cetera. And then Nikita's like, you don't even have blackheads. And I'm like, no, but it could be better. It could be. Yeah, I will not lie. Sometimes in the spectrum, this is where I'm at. I will not lie. Sometimes it's either here or here. Dude, look, but if I could look better, then why can't I? Dude, I'm gonna like show you a photo of myself. Like, no pores is unhealthy, but I wanna have like poreless skin. Okay? I wanna have like genuine like porcelain skin. Is that bad? Is that bad of me? Demi is in her Chinese looks maxing phase.
Day Chads focused primarily on bone strength. I don't know, maybe that sounds familiar to you. It wasn't just about muscle, although of course they made sure they were in great shape. It was about the chi energy within and physical density.
Just use foundation. I don't use makeup. In all my photos that I've ever posted, it usually doesn't have makeup. It's like very rare for me to wear makeup.
You wanted to look like a brick wall. That was kind of the physique they were shooting for. It's important to note, of course, that they weren't hitting themselves in the face with hammers like modern looks maxers. Their routine usually included things like hitting sand.
Oh no, you don't understand. The reason why I don't use makeup is not because I don't think makeup is nice. No, I don't use makeup because like I can't handle the texture in my skin. Like I hate the feeling of layers of things in my, like if I know that there's something in my face, I like touching my face and stuff. And if I know that like I can't touch my face, it'll like irritate me. I'm like, and then oh maybe never mind.
Bags or poles to increase their bone density. There was a 20th century French scholar.
And then like sometimes I would get oily and stuff, and the fact that I can't just like wipe my face and just like wash my face and like whatever and just like restart because I have all this makeup in my face and I'm like
Jacques Journet, who specialized in Chinese history, and he talked a lot about how these aspects.
So it's true you are autistic. Well, I mean, okay, so like usually when I wear makeup, I remove it after 3 hours. Oh my god.
Of appearance became kind of a coded language of your class. In the incredibly hierarchical society of medieval China, if you didn't have the specific look.
There was this one time, it was my brother's wedding. They put makeup on me and I did not like it. So I went to the restroom and wiped it off. And I only left it in my eye. And I look pretty good. Like, dude, my skin is so nice that it didn't matter that I didn't have foundation. So it didn't matter to me. I was like, oh, whatever.
You were culturally invisible. It seems like a lot of young men and young women too feel this today. If you just look up the term looks maxing on YouTube,
I think I'm just really bad, actually.
The insecurity is overwhelming. It's understandable. We were all vulnerable teenagers once too. But you see these guys giving each other ratings on a scale of 1 to 10 and recommending which specific steroids or looks maxing techniques to try so they can bring their flagging.
Yeah, but that's the thing. For me to get better at makeup, I have to practice. But when I want to practice makeup, it's not like playing a video game. I have to actually like put stuff in my face. And like, oh my god, if I have to put stuff in my face, then like, dude, it's just. You know what? Maybe I am autistic. I just don't like the feeling of things in my face. Did you know that's the reason why I pull out every single time that I have like eyelash? You know, every time I do my eyelashes done, I get my eyelashes done, and then every single time after like a few days later, I start picking it out because I can't handle the feeling of something on my skin. So I start pulling it out. I also pull it out every time. You too? Yes!
Features up to speed.
Yeah,
This includes
same.
peptides,
I
which,
can't
as far as
handle
I
having
understand
it in
is
my
amino
face.
acid-based performance enhancers, and the use of GLP-1s like Ozempic, which I feel like people associate with an older audience, but there seem to be a shocking amount of young people taking them. The medieval Chinese were actually big on this kind of thing too. They were obsessed with elixirs made from rare minerals and herbs that were designed to lighten the body and extend life. A lot of these were incredibly dangerous and even included mercury, and I'm sure in the next 10 years or so there will be a bunch of studies showing the horrific side effects of looks maxing and peptides. The idea behind this medieval Chinese looks maxing was essentially the same as the idea behind the modern version, using some kind of external chemistry or method to hack your biological limits and achieve this sort of superior physical state. The Chinese wrote a lot of things down, and thankfully a lot of them have survived over the centuries. Like the
Thankfully.
7th century physician Sun Simao's essential formulas worth 1,000 gold pieces. It was basically this manual for longevity and physical refinement.
What?
And if you're familiar with the European concept of balancing the four humors, this was along
Okay, I don't know anything about this.
the same lines. Simao describes the body as this chemical system that can be balanced or enhanced with specific substances. This idea went even further with the medieval Chinese concept of naidan, or internal alchemy, which taught that the body was composed of three main ingredients, qi, jing, and shen, that could be forged into a golden cinder if you were locked in enough on your physical discipline. Locked in is a good term to use here because this sounds just like the trend of locking in that has been popular with Gen Z for at least 5 years now. If you're not familiar, it just
Wait.
means cutting off outside distractions and focusing intently on some kind of personal goal. So maybe getting your side hustle off the ground or working out more regularly or whatever. It's become sort of a cult online, especially among the gym community, and based on what you see from these fitness influencers, it's like your pump and your physique are proof of an internal
But is this really a Chinese time of people's life, or is this pretty much the effects of social media and the pushing of the economy to being where people can't just afford to even buy a house or whatever, and money, and looks matter, and cameras are becoming more literally HD, so people care more about how they look, especially streamers, because they're in front of a camera. And people's dreams to be a streamer, and you can't really be a streamer if you're like whatever. Isn't that Chinese too?
moral victory, like a victory of the will over the laziness of your base body. A medieval Neidan practitioner literally thought the same exact way. They knew that their physical health and their outward radiance was proof that they had successfully cultivated their soul in a way that others couldn't or hadn't. Young people seem way more into fitness now than they did even 10 years ago. I'm not sure if that's a COVID thing, but I love to see it.
I think it was more of the fact that like America was literally poisoning the well for youth to even like be healthy. I think that's what happened personally. I think that especially when it comes to your food, oh man.
There seems to be a lot of conversation around the idea that your body is the one status symbol you can't really buy. You can buy a Bugatti or a nice watch or whatever, but you can only achieve a truly amazing physique through countless hours in the gym, so it's really the most impressive thing you can have. There's also this quote from the video game Disco Elysium where a bouncer says to the main character, "Your body betrays your degeneracy," and that always sticks in my head when I don't want to go to the gym. I just felt like including that. I like tossing random tidbits into these videos.
All right, W.
Now, most of what I've been talking about so far has come from the Song Dynasty, which lasted for a few centuries right smack dab in the middle of what we would consider the Middle Ages. But the Middle Ages lasted almost 1,000 years, so what about the rest of medieval China? You know what? I'm really glad you asked that. First of all, the Middle Ages happened differently in China than they did in Europe. Basically, even though there are quite a few Song Dynasty parallels, Gen Z is actually in more of a late Ming phase. That's right, I said it. In the earlier Tang Dynasty, which lasted from 618 to 907 AD, your identity was defined by your clan or your rank in the military, basically how people's identities have been defined for most of human history. You were a cog in the great chain of being, and the same thing was true
I feel like that's like in so many areas, not only in China though.
in medieval Europe. You existed within a feudal system put in place by the divine mover. By the late Ming period, which went all the way into the 17th century, there was this rise in individualism that started to run so deep that it turned into the same kind of identity crises and obsession with labels that we see among Gen Z today. You see, Chinese society had reached a level of complexity to such a point that people started to define themselves by their personal quirks and not their family or job. So instead of saying, "I am a soldier," a late late Ming youngin might say, I'm a connoisseur of rare incense who suffers from melancholy. In a similar way, you'd be hard-pressed to meet a young person today who primarily identifies by their profession or their nationality. Find me a 22-year-old who introduces themselves as Garrett the American Plumber, and I would genuinely be shocked. I'm sure Garrett will now show up in my comments to prove me wrong because that's how YouTube works.
I'm Demi, the VTuber Filipino.
Just like the Ming youth, young people now might identify as a neurodivergent creative with a hyperfixation on looks maxing. It's this obsession with self, and it can be dangerous because you stop viewing yourself as part of a wider community and start squeezing yourself into these ever smaller and more specific boxes. The late Ming—
True. I think that recently a lot of people like stop viewing their body as something that's their own. Like sometimes you forget, like, no, this is you. You should actually love it. You're actually surviving, you know? You're actually living life.
Period was a kind of renaissance that ultimately failed. It was this explosion of individual expression and art and looks maxing and everything else, but it was cut short by the Manchu conquest in 1644. I honestly think we're going to see something similar with Gen Z in the coming years. They're in this period of extreme self-expression and pursuit of individual destiny right before a massive systemic reset comes. Maybe that's AI, maybe it's something else, only time will tell. Anyway, we just briefly stepped outside of the Middle Ages, so let's bring things back a few centuries for our next comparison. I want to go back to those Song Dynasty third spaces we talked about earlier. One of them was the Watsi, or the Pleasure Precinct, which sounds pretty good already. Basically, during the Song Dynasty, the government moved away from these strictly managed—
I'm not gonna lie, this guy is really convincing me. Like, you know what? Maybe we are in a very Chinese time of our lives. Have you ever noticed that people are going back to old school like beliefs and shit like that recently? Oh my god, you know what went to my TikTok recently video? Do you know those like 1980s, 1970s like shaking thingies that they believe that they're gonna lose weight because like they're on a like pressure pad that's shaking, and then like people stop doing it because like people, you know, remember like, oh my god, wait, that's fucking snake oil or whatever the fuck. And I see that, I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah, the vibrating belts or whatever the fuck. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's crazy that people are trying to sell that. It had like 250 likes, 250K likes. That's like $250,000. That's crazy. And I'm like seeing how many people are like wanting to do the shaking pad thingy. I'm like, what the fuck?
Residential wards and allowed for the growth of pleasure precincts, or Watsi. If you've ever seen The Wire, this was kind of like the medieval Chinese equivalent of the Amsterdam experiment. The Watsi were these chaotic 24-hour zones where all the basic social rules were temporarily suspended, kind of like the medieval equivalent of the unregulated internet. Now, if you let a bunch of young men loose in an area with no rules, the first thing—
Wait, I think he's cooking.
They'll be interested in is prostitution, but in the modern day, you already check that box with online adult content and gooning. After those urges are satisfied, literally the very next thing they want is to gamble. It's a tale as old as time, and it was a big problem in the Song Dynasty pleasure districts.
Wait, I think he
and
might be
it's an
cooking,
even bigger
guys.
problem now on private gambling Discord servers even huge publicly accessible apps like DraftKings.
Wait, no, I genuinely think he's cooking. Porn addiction? Literally gambling addiction?
And bet DSI. I see so many young people now who are almost turning online gambling into a sort of career path.
But that's not new. That's not like something new. That's been happening. Well, it wasn't as bad as it is now because of the online spaces, though.
Guess what? They did the same thing back in the day, too. You see all kinds of criticisms from these Song
It is
Dynasty
way more
officials
mainstream
like
than it ever
Sima
was
Guang,
before.
who laments that young men are abandoning the plow and the book to chase the flip of the die. There's also this modern sociologist named Beverly Yuen Thompson who writes great stuff about subcultures. And she's noted that fringe groups usually start to form when the mainstream promise of hard work equals success is broken. In the Song Dynasty, your ticket to success was passing the imperial exam, but you could study 30 years just to—
There's something about old school like drawings in China that is so like, I don't know, fascinating to me.
fail an exam that only had a 1% pass rate. That's a bad bet. Young people now are seeing the same thing. Their parents bought houses and supported an entire family on a modest single income, and now they can barely afford their rent. In this kind of paradigm, why wouldn't you open up DraftKings and put everything you own on some ridiculous parlay? Why wouldn't you dump your whole portfolio into some meme coin in the hopes it'll take you to the moon? We might think of this younger generation of gambling addicts as just irresponsible kids whose frontal lobes aren't full.
I don't know, man. I feel like I've never seen this amount of people interested in gambling, especially the young ones, than it is now.
Fully developed yet. That's
Yeah.
definitely part of it. But they're also making a desperate, calculated attempt to exit a system that has already failed them. Going back to the WotC, the pleasure precincts, the reason they never fully took over society is because you had to physically go to them. There was a spirit of anonymity. Basically, what happens in the WotC stays in the WotC, but you still had to go engage in these acts in a somewhat public place and deal with the internal shame of that. Now, with the internet, young people
I just got an email from FIFA because I have World Cup tickets that if you have WC tickets you can get priority visa interviews and expedited access. Maybe that's a new move to get us visa lol.
Are you dead ass? You get expedited access and visa interviews? What?
in all of their most base desires without ever
Dude, what? Hello, Sydney. There's 7 months.
even getting off the couch, and it can literally cost them their entire future. It's worth noting too that when you have a bunch of young, desperate people gathering in one place for a set objective, it can create a sort of ideological powder keg. So in the WotC, these
You know what I love about my streams? You can really see the phases I go through on stream. Right now, I'm going through a very Chinese time in my life with hightail and everything else and then whatever the and talking in CS and etc. etc. But then like you imagine if I actually have a football, like I've never had a sports season. Never had like a, oh my god guys, have you watched the FIFA?
guys formed gambling brotherhoods, and the song Penal Code tried constantly to break them up.
Phase,
because
yeah,
they
that's a
feared
word.
the brotherhoods were becoming more to each other than to
Let
the
me message
emperor.
him.
Now you might get into a private Discord server, ostensibly to do some gambling and trade some insider tips, and next thing you know, you're radicalized into committing some horrific public act of terror. This feels like a good place to land the plane, because the main point I want to make with these videos is that time is a flat circle, and we're essentially repeating the patterns of the past over and over again. There's the
Yeah, we are, aren't we?
old saying that those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it, but it seems like even when we do study history, we're powerless not to make the same mistakes. The difference now, of course, is that these things are happening on a massive global scale with the full weight of tech companies and government institutions behind them. A soldier in the Song Dynasty might drunkenly head to the WotC and lose his monthly wages, and that was it. A young 20-something now might obsessively bet his entire savings on an app on his phone and ruin his whole life before it's even started. This is why we need to pay attention to these trends and recognize that even though human behavior hasn't changed, how we respond to it can. But what do you think? Has this video found you at a very medieval Chinese time in your life?
Oh my, why was it so targeted? Dude, come on, man. Dude, leave me alone. What the fuck?
Let me know in the comments. As always, I'm John, this has been Medieval Mindset, and remember, the past isn't gone, it's simply waiting to be rediscovered.
That was kind of fire. Dude, what the fuck? You've caught me at a very Chinese time in my life. My parents think I'm going through a phase, not realizing I'm going through an entire dynasty. What the fuck? Doom scrolling is opium. Wait. Dude, that was actually such a fun watch. That was actually such a W watch. What the fuck?